All the Light We Cannot See by Anthony Doerr. Part 1. Radio. Vienna is 8 years old and ferreting about in the refuse behind a storage shed when he discovers what looks like a large spool of thread. It consists of a wire-wrapped cylinder sandwiched between two discs of pine wood. 3 frayed electrical leads sprout from the top. One has a small earphone dangling from its end. Yuta, 6 years old, with a round face and a mashed cumulus of white hair, crouches beside her brother. "What is that?" "I think," Vienna says, feeling as though some cupboard in the sky has just opened. "We just found a radio." Until now, he has seen radios only in glimpses. A big cabinet wireless through the lace curtains of an official's house. A portable unit in a miner's dormitory. Another in the church refectory. He has never touched one. He and Yuta smuggle the device back to Victoria Strasse 3 and appraise it beneath an electric lamp. They wipe it clean, untangle a snarl of wires, wash mud out of the earphone. It does not work. Other children come and stand over them and marvel, then gradually lose interest and conclude it is hopeless. But Vienna carries the receiver up to his attic dormer and studies it for hours. He disconnects everything that will disconnect. He lays its parts out on the floor and holds them one by one to the light. 3 weeks after finding the device, on a sun-gilded afternoon when perhaps every other child in Solveig is outdoors, he notices that its longest wire, a slender filament coiled hundreds of times around the central cylinder, has several small breaks in it. Slowly, meticulously, he unwraps the coil, carries the entire looped mess downstairs, and calls Yuta inside to hold the pieces for him while he splices the breaks. Then he rewraps it. "Now let's try," he whispers, and presses the earphone against his ear, and runs what he has decided must be the tuning pin back and forth along the coil. He hears a fizz of static. Then, from somewhere deep inside the earpiece, a stream of consonants issues forth. Vienna's heart pauses. The voice seems to echo in the architecture of his head. The sound fades as quickly as it came. He shifts the pin a quarter inch. More static. Another quarter inch. Nothing. In the kitchen, Frau Elena kneads bread. Boys shout in the alley. Vienna guides the tuning pin back and forth. Static, static. He is about to hand the earphone to Yuta when, clear and unblemished, about halfway down the coil, he hears the quick, drastic strikes of a bow dashing across the strings of a violin. He tries to hold the pin perfectly still. A second violin joins the first. Yuta drags herself closer. She watches her brother with outsized eyes. A piano chases the violins, then woodwinds. The strings sprint, woodwinds fluttering behind. More instruments join in. Flutes, harps. The song races, seems to loop back over itself. "Vienna?" Yuta whispers. He blinks. He has to swallow back tears. The parlor looks the same as it always has. Two cribs beneath two Latin crosses, dust floating in the open mouth of the stove, a dozen layers of paint peeling off the baseboards, a needlepoint of Frau Elena's snowy Alsatian village above the sink. Yet now there is music, as if inside Vienna's head an infinitesimal orchestra has stirred to life. The room seems to fall into a slow spin. His sister says his name more urgently, and he presses the earphone to her ear. Music, she says. He holds the pen as stock still as he can. The signal is weak enough that, though the earphone is 6 inches away, he can't hear any trace of the song. But he watches his sister's face, motionless except for her eyelids, and in the kitchen, Frau Elena holds her flower-whitened hands in the air and cocks her head, studying Vienna, and two older boys rush in and stop, sensing some change in the air, and the little radio, with its four terminals and trailing aerial, sits motionless on the floor between them all like a miracle. Take us home. Usually, Mary Lore can solve the wooden puzzle boxes her father creates for her birthdays. Often they are shaped like houses and contain some hidden trinket. Opening them involves a cunning series of steps. Find a seam with your fingernails, slide the bottom to the right, detach a side rail, remove a hidden key from inside the rail, unlock the top, and discover a bracelet inside. For her 7th birthday, a tiny wooden chalet stands in the center of the kitchen table where the sugar bowl ought to be. She slides a hidden drawer out of the base, finds a hidden compartment beneath the drawer, takes out a wooden key, and slots the key inside the chimney. Inside waits a square of Swiss chocolate. 4 minutes, says her father, laughing. I'll have to work harder next year. For a long time, though, unlike his puzzle boxes, his model of their neighborhood makes little sense to her. It is not like the real world. The miniature intersection of Rue de Meuble and Rue Monge, for example, just a block from their apartment, is nothing like the real intersection. The real one presents an amphitheater of noise and fragrance. In the fall, it smells of traffic and castor oil, bread from the bakery, camphor from Abbott's pharmacy, delphiniums and sweet peas, and roses from the flower stand. On winter days, it swims with the odor of roasting chestnuts. On summer evenings, it becomes slow and drowsy, full of sleepy conversations and the scraping of heavy iron chairs. But her father's model of the same intersection smells only of dried glue and sawdust. Its streets are empty, its pavement static. To her fingers, it serves as little more than a tiny and insufficient facsimile. He persists in asking Mary Lore to run her fingers over it, to recognize different houses, the angles of streets. And one cold Tuesday in December, when Mary Lore has been blind for over a year, her father walks her up Rue Cuvier to the edge of the Jardin des Plantes. Here, ma chérie, is the path we take every morning. Through the cedars up ahead is the grand gallery. I know, Papa. He picks her up and spins her around 3 times. Now, he says, You're going to take us home. Her mouth drops open. I want you to think of the model, Marie. But I can't possibly. I'm one step behind you. I won't let anything happen. You have your cane. You know where you are. I do not. You do. Exasperation. She cannot even say if the gardens are ahead or behind. Calm yourself, Marie. 1 centimeter at a time. It's far, Papa. 6 blocks at least. 6 blocks is exactly right. Use logic. Which way should we go first? The world pivots and rumbles. Crows shout, brakes hiss. Someone to her left bangs something metal with what might be a hammer. She shuffles forward until the tip of her cane floats in space. The edge of a curb, a pond, a staircase, a cliff. She turns 90 degrees, 3 steps forward. Now her cane finds the base of a wall. Papa? I'm here. 6 paces, 7 paces, 8. A roar of noise. An exterminator just leaving a house. Pump billowing overtakes them. 12 paces farther on, the bell tied around the handle of a shop door rings, and 2 women came out, jostling her as they pass. Mary Lore drops her cane. She begins to cry. Her father lifts her, holds her to his narrow chest. It's so big, she whispers. You can do this, Marie. She cannot. Something rising. While the other children play hopscotch in the alley or swim in the canal, Vienna sits alone in his upstairs dormer, experimenting with the radio receiver. In a week, he can dismantle and rebuild it with his eyes closed. Capacitor, inductor, tuning coil, earpiece. One wire goes to the ground, the other to sky. Nothing he's encountered before has made so much sense. He harvests parts from supply sheds, snips of copper wire, screws, a bent screwdriver. He charms the druggist's wife into giving him a broken earphone. He salvages a solenoid from a discarded doorbell, solders it to a resistor, and makes a loudspeaker. Within a month, he manages to redesign the receiver entirely, adding new parts here and there and connecting it to a power source. Every evening, he carries his radio downstairs, and Frau Elena lets her wards listen for an hour. They tune in to newscasts, concerts, operas, national choirs, folk shows, a dozen children in a semicircle on the furniture. Frau Elena among them, hardly more substantial than a child herself. We live in exciting times, says the radio. We make no complaints. We will plant our feet firmly in our earth, and no attack will move us. The older girls like musical competitions, radio gymnastics, a regular spot called Seasonal Tips for Those in Love that makes the younger children squeal. The boys like plays, news bulletins, martial anthems. Yuta likes jazz. Piana likes everything. Violins, horns, drums, speeches. a mouth against a microphone in some faraway yet simultaneous evening. The sorcery of it holds him rapt. Is it any wonder, asked the radio, that courage, confidence, and optimism in growing measure fill the German people? Is not the flame of a new faith rising from this sacrificial readiness? Indeed, it does seem to Vienna, as the weeks go by, that something new is rising. Mine production increases, unemployment drops, meat appears at Sunday supper, lamb, pork, wieners, extravagances unheard of a year before. Frau Elena buys a new couch upholstered in orange corduroy and arranged with burners in black rings. 3 new Bibles arrive from the consistory in Berlin. A laundry boiler is delivered to the back door. Vienna gets new trousers. Utah gets her own pair of shoes. Working telephones ring in the houses of neighbors. One afternoon, on the walk home from school, Vienna stops outside the drugstore and presses his nose to a tall window. 5 dozen-inch-tall stormtroopers march there, each toyman with a brown shirt and tiny red armband, some with flutes, some with drums, a few officers astride glossy black stallions. Above them, suspended from a wire, a tin-plate clockwork aquaplane with wooden platoons and a rotating propeller makes an electric, hypnotizing orbit. Vienna studies it through the glass for a long time, trying to understand how it works. Night falls, autumn in 1936, and Vienna carries the radio downstairs and sets it on the sideboard, and the other children fidget in anticipation. The receiver hums as it warms. Vienna steps back, hands in pockets. From the loudspeaker, a children's choir sings. We hope only to work and work and work, to go to glorious work for the country. Then a state-sponsored play out of Berlin begins, a story of invaders sneaking into a village at night. All 12 children sit riveted. In the play, the invaders pose as hook-nosed department store owners, crooked jewelers, dishonorable bankers. They sell glittering trash. They drive established village businessmen out of work. Soon they plot to murder German children in their beds. Eventually, a vigilant and humble neighbor catches on. Police are called. Big, handsome-sounding policemen with splendid voices. They break down the doors. They drag the invaders away. A patriotic march plays. Everyone is happy again.